The 7th year since my best friend and I transmigrated into this novel world, she brought me wonderful news. As long as these bodies of ours die, we can return to our original world. After saying this, she leaped off the tall building. Her splattered blood soaked the sleeve of her husband's robe. The man who had been accusing her of putting on an act just a moment ago stared with bloodshot eyes, his heart torn to shreds. I stepped past him, my gaze falling on the man not far away, who was holding their white moonlight in his arms and coaxing her softly. That man was my husband, the emperor of this realm. I thought, it was time for me to go home too. The night I witnessed Chu Yu's suicide, I was plagued by nightmares the entire time. When I woke up, my body was drenched in cold sweat, my hands and feet ice cold. The maids and attendants on duty in the inner chamber heard the commotion, immediately lit the lanterns, and came over to drape a thin quilt over me. Yet my heart still raced uncontrollably. Chu Yu's words to me in the daytime still echoed in my mind. She had said, "Romue, I found the way home. The system said our mission was completed 2 years ago. As long as these bodies we have in this world die, we can break free from the plot and go home." When she said this, there was a brilliant light in her eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. In that instant, a glimmer of hope was kindled in my heart, but it faded quickly. For I did not know if all this was real or just a fantasy of Chu Yu's. After all, 2 years ago was a crucial turning point. Chu Yu, my best friend, and I had transmigrated into this world together. The system had told us that we could go home once we finished walking the plot. To complete the mission, Chu Yu and I married Xiao Yu, the crown prince, and Xiao Chen, the third prince, respectively, becoming the famous virtuous wives in the capital. We supported them all the way, sharing weal and woe with them, until their hardships bore fruit. One ascended the throne smoothly as the emperor, and the other became a renowned virtuous prince under heaven. It was a perfectly harmonious plot, yet we just couldn't finish the mission, only because the system said there was one final level left. Chu Yu and I were confused, but we still went on with our days like this. Fortunately, Chu Yu and the virtuous prince Xiao Chen truly loved each other, and their days were already as sweet as honey. And though Xiao Yu was the emperor, he never treated me poorly. In the Eastern Palace, I was his crown princess. His birth mother was the empress, yet she was not favored. The late emperor doted on the noble consort and the 9th prince she had borne. The crown prince's position was the only thing the late emperor had bestowed on Xiao Yu. Besides that, not a single extra word of care, not a single glance. As the 9th prince grew older, Xiao Yu's position as crown prince became increasingly precarious. In his darkest days, though his birth mother was still alive, apart from Xiao Chen, his blood brother, who stood by his side, I was the only one left with Xiao Yu. Fortunately, despite all the hardships and dangers, Xiao Yu finally ascended to that throne. The first imperial edict he issued after his coronation was to make me empress. After that, he even left the harem empty. No matter how hard the civil and military officials of the previous court racked their brains to marry their daughters into the palace, Xiao Yu remained unmoved. He respected me and loved me, refusing to let me suffer any grievances. I knew he had always resented the late emperor for doting on the noble consort and neglecting his own wife. Once, when our hearts were intertwined, Xiao Yu held my hand and swore that he would never become a failed husband and father like the late emperor. Yet he broke his oath after all. After enduring so much suffering, our peaceful days only lasted for a year. A year after Xiao Yu ascended the throne, the white moonlight of his and Xiao Chen's youth, the Princess Anping, who had married into the grasslands for a political alliance, returned, too. It seems every man has a white moonlight he loved but couldn't have in his youth, and the two Xiao brothers were no exception. The current Empress Dowager had given birth to more than just these two princes. There was also the little Princess Jinyu, who had been born with a congenital deficiency because the Empress had been consumed by grief and anxiety during her pregnancy. She was the little girl who, due to her frail health since childhood, had been cherished like the apples of the Xiao brothers' eyes. But the late emperor wanted to send someone to the grasslands for a political marriage, and after much selection, he chose the little princess. Her health was already fragile, and the journey to the grasslands was long. She would never survive the wind and frost along the way. In the end, it was Princess Anping, who had accompanied them since childhood, who went to the imperial court to plead, volunteering to go to the grasslands for the marriage alliance. Even so, the little princess still did not live through that winter. The unplaced guilt of the two Xiao brothers was then doubled and bestowed upon Anping, who had gone in her stead. Now that Anping had returned in glory, it was destined that she would be cherished in the hearts of the two most powerful men in the capital. At first, Xiao Yu exercised great restraint. The first one to lose his senses was the virtuous Prince Xiao Chen. The palace banquet that day was originally held to welcome Princess Anping's return. Somehow, someone just had to open their mouth, talking about the princess in front of everyone, saying that according to the customs of the grasslands, she should have married the new Khan after the old one's death, yet she had been sent back. It was truly strange. This single sentence made Princess Anping, who was just about to enter, lower her head and shed tears in sorrow. It also completely enraged Xiao Chen, who had grown up with Anping. That day, the virtuous prince, who had always been gentle to others, fought with someone for the first time. He beat the man until his head was bleeding at the banquet. Someone had insulted the princess, and he could have punished that person in 1,000 secret ways. Yet he made such a big fuss, as if only this could quell the anger in his heart. In the bold and unrestrained manner of a young hero, he created this uproar to make it clear to everyone. Even though Princess Anping had been married and widowed, she was still cherished like the apple of his eye. The virtuous Prince Xiao Chen, that day. Everyone present saw it clearly. The virtuous prince, who had always been known for doting on his wife to the extreme, had pushed his princess away with a backhand when she went to persuade him while he was fighting for Princess Anping. Chuyu was pushed to the ground by him, her lower abdomen hitting the corner of a table, and blood immediately stained her clothes. Broken bowls and plates cut her palm. And she stared blankly at Xiao Chen, who had once sworn to cherish her for a lifetime. In a daze, she lost her first child. "Your Highness, the princess is bleeding," someone around her exclaimed. Yet Xiao Chen acted as if he hadn't heard, still consumed by his rage, rather than caring about his wife, who had supported him all the way. Being injured, he was more worried that Princess Anping would be bullied in the future, so he stood protectively in front of Princess Anping, and said coldly to the guests with all kinds of expressions, "From now on, anyone who dares to speak a single word of ill about Princess Anping will be making an enemy of the entire Prince Xian's mansion." Seeing this, I rose from my high seat and immediately ordered my trusted nanny to take Chuyu back and summon the imperial physician. When Xiao Chen finished his declaration, I had just walked behind him. "Xiao Chen," I called his name in a deep voice, and when he turned around, I slapped him hard across the face. 3. I was haunted by nightmares woven from these past events for 7 days. When I woke up again, my whole body was weak and powerless. Xiao Yu sat by the bed, watching over me. He looked at me, his eyes slightly red, deep remorse etched between his brows. Yet the moment our gazes met, he averted his eyes guiltily. He knew how deep the bond between Chuyu and me was, yet he was one of the chief culprits who had driven Chuyu to her death to prove her innocence. Chuyu died on the day he held a birthday celebration for Anping with the specifications of a palace consort. Before that, Chuyu had taken the token Xiao Yu had bestowed on her when he ascended the throne, and begged for an imperial edict for a divorce, but Xiao Yu had rejected it. Even though that token had been a royal promise Chuyu had earned by protecting him with her life, yet to prevent Anping from being criticized for breaking up the deeply loving royal couple of the virtuous prince, he still chose to block Chuyu's last way out. When Chuyu died, her blood splattered and stained Anping's skirt. Anping was frightened, whimpered, and hid in Xiao Yu's arms, and he instinctively held her tightly, comforting her in a soft voice. It was only when our gazes met that Xiao Yu seemed to realize belatedly that the woman who had died a tragic death in front of him had once been his benefactor, who had assisted him wholeheartedly, disregarding her own safety. When he was in his lowliest days, Xiao Yu let go of his arms around Anping. Though he was already the emperor, he looked somewhat flustered. He wanted to say something, but I paid no more attention to him. I only walked forward slowly, gently wiping the blood from Chuyu's face with my sleeve, then took off the token hanging around her neck. Wait for me a little longer. What is owed to us, I will take it back first before I leave. Chuyu and I grew up in the same orphanage. She had been carefree since childhood, always able to ignore pain excessively, so she could adapt to any place. But I was different. I had always been petty, and would avenge every grievance, clenching my fist tightly to suppress the overwhelming anger. I did not look at anyone, and turned to leave straight away. I left Xiao Yu behind, and from start to finish, I did not say another word to him. From that day on, I closed the palace gates tightly and fell gravely ill. Now, Xiao Yu sat beside me, staring at me in a daze and helplessness. He wanted to reach out and brush the hair stuck to my cheek, but put his arm down under my cold gaze. Aren't you going to comfort Princess Armping? I couldn't help but sneer. She's such a delicate thing that she'll cry if someone speaks a little louder in front of her. After all, Chuyu, who saved your life with her own, only lost her life. She was the one who was terribly frightened. Xiao Yu seemed to be choked by my words, and after a long while, he forced a bitter smile. Empress, don't be like this. Once, whenever he called me this, I would always remember my identity in time and give him a way out as he wished. But this time, I did not respond, only meeting him with silence. Xiao Yu did not wait for my thoughtfulness and tact. After a long time, he tentatively spoke a second sentence. Anping, she did not do it on purpose. I have punished her by confining her to her palace. I didn't even want to hear the rest of the sentence, and directly picked up the medicine bowl beside me and smashed it on him. The black medicinal juice stained his dragon robe. Get out, I spoke concisely and clearly. This was the first time in history that I had offended him so openly in front of everyone. The palace maids around fell to their knees in fear. Trembling, Xiao Yu's expression was uncertain, and in the end, he turned and strode out the door in a fit of anger, his sleeves flaring. After Xiao Yu left, someone else came to see me. It was Xiao Chen. As a prince, he should never have entered the harem, but Xiao Chen had gone mad. He would rather be beheaded than break in. He said, Chuyu must have left something to say to me. Jiyu Rongyue, tell me. Wrapped in a heavy fur cloak, I sat on the hall throne and stared at the man before me. His features twisted with madness, haggard and disheveled. He bore not a trace of the first young master of the capital, once renowned far and wide for his grace. At that moment, Xiao Chen's eyes were bloodshot as he bombarded me with questions, his voice breaking. Chuyu wasn't putting on a show, was she? She always loved using such tricks to get my attention, to bully Anping. How could she have really jumped? How could she? Yes, ever since Anping's return, the sweet, soulmate days Chuyu and Xiao Chen had shared were gone forever. Unlike me, who had locked away my heart from the very start, that foolish girl had truly fallen in love with Xiao Chen, a gentle, witty young prince and a girl who had fallen from the heavens to save him from despair. Their love had seemed the most natural thing in the world, so when she lost their first child, she wept every single day. At first, Xiao Chen was consumed by guilt. He stayed by her side constantly, repenting and swearing that such a thing would never happen again. But later, Princess Anping visited the prince's mansion and deliberately taunted Chuyu about the child's death. Chuyu lost control and struck her. When Anping returned to her residence, she attempted to hang herself, only to be saved by her servants. From that day on, the person Xiao Chen chose to comfort was no longer Chuyu, but Anping. You were right to blame me for the child's death. Unleash your anger on me if you must. But Anping never meant to harm you, yet you ruined her reputation and let the world condemn her. She has suffered enough. Chuyu, this is what we owe Anping. After that, such words were always on Xiao Chen's lips, and he drifted further and further away from Chuyu, the young prince who had smiled and tapped Chuyu's head with a folding fan when she first stumbled into this world. Clumsy and lost, then patiently taught her the ways of it, who had gently bandaged her wounds when she was hurt, who had stood up for her without hesitation when noble ladies framed her. He was gone, as if he had never existed. Anping's schemes to frame Chuyu grew more and more crude, but the man who was blind to the truth and deaf to reason saw nothing. And now, he knelt before me in agony, his voice raw. I only didn't want to regret it again. Once, I was too weak to protect Jinyu. I only hoped to protect Armping now, that was all. Why wouldn't Chuyu believe me? Aren't we husband and wife? Why couldn't she understand me? At this, a sharp, cold laugh burst from my lips. You are not worthy to be called her husband. Have you forgotten? Chuyu begged for a divorce from you a year ago. Xiao Chen's head shot up at my words, his eyes sharp with wariness as he stared at me. Jiyu Rongyue, what have you done? As soon as the words left his mouth, the sound of an imperial edict being proclaimed echoed through the hall. It was an edict approved by Xiao Yu. This time, he had accepted the token and granted Chu Yu's request for a divorce made in her lifetime. From this day forth, the virtuous prince and his princess were divorced. The former princess of Xian would be laid to rest as a common virtuous woman, and would never share a tomb with Xiao Chen. I sat high on my throne, my gaze mocking as I looked down at Xiao Chen, husband and wife. From the moment you stopped trusting her, you were no longer worthy to be her husband. Then I fixed my eyes on his, every word sharp and clear. As for Chu Yu's last moments, she did not mention you a single word. You thought she was putting on a show for you, but in her heart, you had long been nothing at all. Xiao Chen flew into a frenzy and was dragged away by the guards at the sides. I leaned back against the throne, weary, my gaze drifting to the shadows where Xiao Yu had stood, unbidden. For who knew how long? Is this your idea of atonement? You know this is not what I want. I looked at him, my voice cold as ice. Chu Yu lost her life. Her murderers should pay with theirs. Rongyue. Xiao Yu stood in the darkness, hesitating for a long time before speaking, his voice thick with difficulty. Armping. She did not mean it. He could not possibly have believed those words himself. Yet he still chose to defend Armping, deceiving himself and others alike. Xiao Yu may not have known it, but the look in his eyes when he gazed at Armping was a tenderness he had never shown to anyone else. He had restrained his wild, unbridled love, all to keep his promise of faithfulness to his feelings. Unfortunately, he had failed to protect either side. In that moment, exhaustion washed over me, and my shoulders slumped in defeat. I see, I said. Get out. Xiao Yu froze in place, as if stung by my demeanor. His eyes held a newfound strangeness and confusion as he looked at me. Once, to be the virtuous crown princess he needed, I had always worn a mask of gentleness and magnanimity. In moments of affection, he had held me countless times and sighed, "Yua, to have a wife like you is my greatest fortune." Now that I knew the way home, I no longer needed to hide my true nature. I said, "Xiao Yu, you cannot bear to kill her. You feel you owe her, so you repay that debt with the life of your benefactor." How utterly despicable! It was an act of sheer treason. Those words, Xiao Yu's face darkened. "Empress, have you lost your mind?" "Yes," I said, laughing brightly as I stepped slowly toward him, lifting a hand to brush my fingers gently across his cheek. I said, "Xiao Yu, I am going to die soon too. I don't want you anymore." That day, he fled the Weiyang Palace in utter disarray, so he did not hear my final words. I said, "If I die, none of you shall live in peace either." 5. I have never been a generous person. I count every grievance, every slight, whether in love or in material things. I have always believed only in the equal exchange of interests, never in the so-called sincerity between a man and a woman. Even once, Xiao Yu and our marriage would have been called a model marriage even in the era I came from, a feudal emperor in ancient times, yet he had taken the initiative to promise me a lifetime of just the two of us. He had always treated me with the respect and love of an ordinary husband, never putting on the airs of an emperor in front of me. The whole world marveled at my great fortune, to have won the heart of the Son of Heaven, but I knew the truth. He had offered me the promise of a lifetime together only to distance himself from his own father. He had respected and cherished me because I had stood by him in his darkest days, diffusing crisis after crisis for him. His faithfulness was for himself, and his kindness was something I had fought for, tooth and nail. All these years, I had fulfilled my duty to the letter, playing the role of the ideal wife he desired, virtuous, magnanimous, brave and resourceful. He was satisfied, and I spared myself the trouble. That was all there was to it. Even though Xiao Yu had often been grateful for my presence, seeing me as more than family, but between us, that was where it ended. We had never spoken of love, he loved another. Yet he could not bear to let me go. I knew that she had once held an umbrella for him in the rain when he was a boy, and had embroidered a sachet for him with her own hands. He had been too weak to protect her then, and the regret had lingered in his heart ever since, so now, he used the power I had schemed and fought for to make her lawless, to spoil her beyond measure. Xiao Yu knew that Chu Yu's death would fill me with resentment toward Princess Anping, yet he still chose to protect her. Confining her in his own palace, he had chosen to stand against me, and I would not let them live in peace. Fortunately, during the 2 years when the plot had shackled me, forbidding me to harm Anping, I had collected no small number of things to settle the score with her later. I picked one of them and sent it to Xiao Chen. It was the indenture of a maid who had once served in his mansion. Xiao Chen would surely remember her. Her name was Hong Xiao, born into poverty. She had been about to be sold to a brothel when Chu Yu had bought her freedom and taken her into her own courtyard. Back then, Hong Xiao had been overflowing with gratitude to Chu Yu, calling her a bodhisattva who had saved her life, leaving Chu Yu flustered and unsure how to respond. But later, it was Hong Xiao who had spread rumors that Chu Yu abused her servants, and in her anger, she had poisoned Chu Yu, killing their unborn second child. At that time, Chu Yu had already lost all hope, and had no desire to punish the maid. By chance, Princess Anping had been visiting the prince's mansion that day. Filled with righteous indignation, she had made the decision for Chu Yu, ordering Hong Xiao to be beaten to death on the spot. It was a clumsy scheme, one that anyone with a modicum of sense could see through. But Xiao Chen's suspicion had stopped at Hong Xiao. He had refused to dig any deeper. He had only comforted Chu Yu with empty words, deceiving himself, saying that they would have other children, as if there could ever be another. By then, Chu Yu's heart had already died where Xiao Chen was concerned. She knew that even if it had not been Hong Xiao, someone else would have harmed the child in her womb. She had long since refused to bear Xiao Chen's children. She had merely let events take their course. Now I sent Hong Xiao's indenture to Xiao Chen, which recorded her original hometown and the information of her family. If he bothered to investigate, he would find that every single one of them was dead. Someone had silenced them all in a single night. With Xiao Chen's abilities, it would not be difficult for him to find the real culprit. It all depended on when the man who had been deceiving himself would finally choose to wake up. This time, Xiao Chen moved quickly. All the things Chu Yu had tried to explain to him 1,000 times when she was alive, all the truths he had refused to see, he uncovered them all in just 3 days. It was a bitter joke that Chu Yu had suffered 2 years of torment for these very things. That night, the lights in the prince's mansion burned bright all night long. He sat at his desk, staring at the evidence he had gathered, recounting every grievance Chu Yu had endured over the years. For the first time, the virtuous prince faced up to how derelict he had been as a lover, and in a single night, most of his black hair turned white. At the first crow of the rooster at dawn, Xiao Chen slung his sword over his shoulder and stepped out the door. Everyone said he had gone mad. He had only just been punished by the emperor, and now he was making an even bigger scene. He charged straight for the princess's mansion, sword in hand. The entire capital watched as Princess Anping, once the apple of his eye, fled his mansion in utter disarray, barefoot, running for several streets until she reached the palace gates. Her always plain white dress was stained with mud and filth, her usually delicate, pitiful face twisted only with fear and ferocity. In the end, she tripped and fell at the palace gates. Xiao Yu, having received word, hurried out to fetch her, but he was too late. With a single swing of his sword, Xiao Chen cut off Princess Anping's long hair, a little more, and the blade would have slit her soft throat. Why? Xiao Chen demanded, his voice hoarse with rage, desperate for an answer. I have never wronged you. Why did you destroy my family? I did not. She burst into tears first, as if she had suffered the greatest injustice in the world, but Xiao Chen no longer believed her. He closed his eyes, raised the long sword in his hand, and intended to die together with Anping, yet he was stopped by a sharp shout. Prince Yan, what are you doing? Xiao Yu stepped out from behind the imperial guards. Brother Emperor, Yu is dead. I must avenge her. Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Yu, his smile filled with despair, but at his words, Xiao Yu only let out a cold laugh. He said, "What has Anping to do with Chu Yu's death? It was you who doubted her, who refused to believe her, who let her down. You suspected her yet would not let her go free. The one who killed Chu Yu was always you." In this moment, he understood everything. Yet when he had rejected Chu Yu's request for a divorce, he had said it was all just her overthinking, that Xiao Chen had never wronged her. Unable to bear seeing his own blood brother in such a state of ruin after all, Xiao Yu softened his tone. "Third brother, Anping may have her childish faults, which caused strife between you and Chu Yu. But you must understand, she never had the heart to harm anyone. She is Jinyu's benefactor." He never finished his words, for he saw me walking through the crowd toward them. In an instant, his face paled slightly, the twisted excuses dying in his throat, unspoken, so even he could feel shame. Not yet fully recovered from my serious illness, I was supported by palace maids as I came forward, my face weary, my gaze swept lightly over him, finally falling to his waist. And I suddenly smiled softly. "The sachet I embroidered for your majesty once, do you still wear it by your side every day?" Unprepared for this mention, Xiao Yu's expression flickered for a moment, then a soft, warm tone crept into his voice. "That is the Empress's heartfelt gift. I have never let it leave my side for a single day." He had begged me for that sachet when we had just married. Once, only Anping's sachet had hung at his waist, after our marriage, to show his faithfulness to me. Xiao Yu had taken the initiative to ask me for one to replace it. Even though my embroidery skills were far from perfect, he had cherished it as a treasure, wearing it every day and caring for it dearly. Memories of the past stirred a hint of nostalgia on Xiao Yu's face. In the next moment, Anping's watery gaze shifted to Xiao Yu's face, and she called him in a mournful whisper, "Your Majesty, brother, it hurts." 6. That single, clinging call of brother struck a knife into Xiao Chen's heart. Once, when Anping and Chu Yu had quarreled, she had always loved calling him that. That tone, so like Jinyu's, had always made his heart soften despite himself. "Brother," for the sake of this single word, I even deceived my own heart. His palm brushed Anping's cheek, his eyes gradually clearing. "So it turns out you can never replace Jinyu. Jinyu did not have such a vicious heart. Yet for a poisonous woman like you, I hurt the one I loved. I never begged you to do any of this. You threw yourself at me of your own free will. You madman." Princess Anping could bear it no longer, shoving Xiao Chen away violently, then lifting her skirt and fleeing toward Xiao Yu like a tired bird returning to its nest. "Madman, of my own free will." Xiao Chen did not chase her, he only stood where he was, murmuring these words, stumbling back 2 steps. Then throwing his head back and laughing wildly. "I am more than a madman, I am the biggest fool in the world." His grief-stricken gaze crossed the crowd and landed on me. "Jiyu Rongyue, I finally see the truth. It was not Chu Yu who desecrated Jinyu's spirit tablet, it was Anping who paid someone to frame her. That winter palace banquet, it was Anping who jumped into the water on her own accord, not Chu Yu who harmed her. And the civet cat she loved the most, Anping threw it to its death too. And our child, I finally see the truth. But Maya Yu can never come back." As he spoke, overcome with sorrow, a trickle of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Xiao Chen paid it no mind, his voice choked with sobs as he recounted, one by one, the moments that had torn him and Chu Yu apart. Those heart-wrenching memories had turned the once bright-eyed, smiling girl's gaze hollow and desperate. In the end, she had stood on that high platform, clutching my hand tightly, her tone resolute, and said, "Rongyue, we must go home." Then she had let go of me, turned, and fallen from the platform, and now, only now, did he feel the regret too late. "Prince Xian, watch your words." Finally, Xiao Yu lowered his voice, warning him sharply. Even at this moment, he still cared for Anping's reputation. "Brother Emperor, you know the truth of everything. Why will you not wake up? Must you lose the Empress, just as I lost to you, before you are willing to see reason?" Xiao Chen's expression grew agitated. He stepped forward quickly, reaching for Xiao Yu. He did not know which word had struck a nerve in Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu let out a cold laugh and raised his hand, slapping Xiao Chen hard across the face. Xiao Chen's head snapped to the side from the force. After a long moment, He came to his senses and slowly smiled at Xiao Yu. "Brother Emperor, once, Chu Yu and I earned a favor from you together, now I wish to use it." He stared straight at Xiao Yu. Every word clear and firm. "Your subject wishes to use this favor to beg for the hand of Princess Amping in marriage. I refuse." At these words, Amping sobbed, reaching out to clutch Xiao Yu's sleeve. "Brother, please, he will kill me." Xiao Yu fell silent, and the scene deadlocked for a time. "Brother Emperor, you have witnessed my end. I do not wish for you to regret yours." Even now, he was still plotting for his elder brother, but Xiao Yu was not willing to accept his kindness. His eyes darkened, and he said not a word. In the end, he even cast a pleading, troubled gaze toward me. I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave without a word, but Xiao Chen called after me. He said, "Jiyu Rongyue, I saw her." In the other world, I turned back, my eyes filled with surprise and doubt, only to find him staring straight into mine. "I dreamed of her. She is smiling happily in the other world." His tone shifted, and he asked me, "What is a strategy? Can Chuyu ever come back?" At his words, I smiled faintly and answered Xiao Chen, "How can the dead return? But I can tell you what a strategy is if you trade her life for it." My hand slowly pointed at Princess Amping, unprepared for the fact that I still intended to not let her go. Xiao Yu's tone held a hint of displeasure. He said, "Rongyue, as the mother of the nation, you cannot keep acting so recklessly." Amping peeked out from behind him at me, a sneering smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. How pitiful. She mouthed silently at me. I did not indulge her. In a single motion, I drew the sword from the guard beside me and slashed straight at her grinning face. My sudden outburst took everyone by surprise. By the time those around reacted, most of Princess Amping's right ear had been cut off, and blood gushed forth in an instant. A shrill scream rang out. She fell to the ground, her snow-white dress stained red with blood. I looked at her and suddenly laughed. "Now you are maimed. You are the pitiful one now." At my words, Amping looked up in horror, her eyes filled with venomous hatred as she stared at me. Unfortunately, I did not have time to strike a second blow. Xiao Yu grabbed my wrist, and the sword was knocked flying from my hand. "Empress." Xiao Yu was furious, his gaze as dark as water as he looked at me, and when our eyes met, I suddenly grinned. Then I grabbed his lapels and suddenly vomited a mouthful of heart blood. This body had long been worn thin. And in this moment of intense emotional upheaval, the blood pouring from my mouth would not stop. I clung to Xiao Yu, forcing back the blackness creeping into my vision. Only when I caught sight of the purple light rising from the sachet at his waist the moment it was soaked in blood did I finally relax. I said, "Farewell, Xiao Yu." He did not know that his life had been sentenced to death at this very moment. I had wanted to hurl more harsh words at him, but my chest ached unbearably. I never expected these 4 short words to throw the Emperor before me into a panic. He stretched out his hands in fluster, trying to wipe the blood from the corner of my mouth, but the more he wiped, the more blood there was. In the end, he pulled me into his arms, tears streaming down his face. He said, "No, no. It is my fault. I do not want anyone else. Yua, we will not be separated. TCH, idiot." 7. I had a dream. It was not long after I had married Xiao Yu. At that time, Xiao Yu was still the crown prince unfavored by the emperor, with very few ministers in the court supporting him. In his darkest hour, Xiao Yu had been ordered by the emperor to be confined to his mansion, forbidden to leave without an imperial edict. He had been a single step away from being deposed. I begged the current Empress Dowager for help, but she had remained cold and unmoved, unwilling to wear away the little affection left between her and the late emperor for this matter. In the end, it was Xiao Chen, trapped in the Jiangnan region, who uncovered the list of officials who had embezzled disaster relief funds during the flood, and Chu Yu who had brought it back at the risk of her life. On the day I received the list, I disguised myself and, under the cover of night, held this dangerous bargaining chip and negotiated alone with a group of veteran ministers who had once supported Xiao Yu but now chose to wait and see. I finally gained the support of the late emperor's grand tutor at dawn. Before I left, he told me frankly that he had spent the entire night torn between whether to kill me outright and seize the list. After all, Xiao Yu had been worthless at that time. in this pitch-black night with not a single star in the sky, I had brushed shoulders with death countless times. Fortunately, I had succeeded in the end, this old fox, who had navigated the officialdom for decades, finally chose to bet on Xiao Yu, the one who had always kept a low profile and bided his time. "Is your highness not afraid of death?" he asked me. "A woman has her own place to keep the peace. Why must your highness fight as fiercely as a man?" I did not mind the mockery in his tone, only lowering my eyes and speaking softly. "The crown prince is no ordinary man. He harbors great ambitions, and I will fulfill them for him. What is death to me?" Those words had been spoken solely to complete the strategy of winning Xiao Yu's heart, and they had eventually reached his ears. The moment I returned to the Eastern Palace, he had pulled me into a tight embrace, as if holding a rare treasure. At that time, his voice was wet with tears, and he choked in my ear. "In my life, my parents never loved me. I am fortunate to have you by my side." I lowered my eyes and only patted his back gently to comfort him. That experience had been truly perilous. After the matter was settled, the four of us had once boiled wine under the moonlight. It was the first time I'd seen Xiao Yu drunk. He'd lost his usual sober composure, his eyes red like a child's as he said, "Father spurns me, mother spurns me, then I don't want them anymore. I have Rongyue. From now on, I only want Rongyue." He was utterly intoxicated that night, warmth softening his eyes as he held my hand and repeated, over and over, "Rongyue, let's live well together." I lowered my gaze to the wine cup, not answering, only pressing a cup of warm tea to soothe his stomach into his hand at the right moment. "Cheers." Chuyu slammed the table and shouted in response, already slurring her words from too much wine, "We're all here. What fear have we of hardships? They're all trivial things. To friendship, we're amazing." The girl raised her wine cup high, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright as starlight. Xiao Chen leaned his head on his hand and watched her fool around beside her. When Chuyu finally succumbed to the alcohol, her head falling to the table in a deep sleep, he reached out and gently lifted her into his arms. The moonlight spilled into Xiao Chen's eyes that night, and his gaze on Chuyu was unmistakably full of tender affection. Chuyu was carried away by Xiao Chen in the end, and Xiao Yu, emboldened by the wine, begged me for the sachet I'd promised him not long before. After I tied it on him with my own hands, he smiled contentedly and pressed a soft kiss to my fingertips. In truth, there was one more exchange at the Grand Tutor's mansion that day that never spread beyond those walls. It was Grand Tutor Liu's comment on me, his hawk-like gaze seeming to pierce through this virtuous facade to my very soul as he said, "The Crown Prince has no idea his wife in the bedchamber is the cruelest, most ruthless one of all." Just as he had no idea, inside the sachet I'd given him, I'd placed a poison I'd exchanged from the system. If the sachet ever stained with my blood, the toxin within would be unleashed, gnawing away at the wearer day and night. Anyone who takes something from me is never allowed to betray me. 8. When I woke again, my head throbbed violently. The maid attending me saw I'd roused and hurried out to report the news. In no time at all, Xiao Yu arrived. He looked haggard, a faint stubble shadowing his jaw, his lips pale. While I'd waited for him, the maids had already told me I'd been unconscious for 7 whole days, and Xiao Yu had sat vigil by my bed, never removing his robes, until just now, when he'd stepped away for a short nap. He'd never expected me to wake at this moment. I leaned back against the soft pillow, my expression listless. Xiao Yu, sitting beside me, was equally dejected. "The imperial physicians say your body is grievously depleted, your vital energy wounded. You wore yourself thin in those hard days before. I'm sorry." As he spoke, he reached out to brush my hair, but his outstretched arm froze mid-air under my mocking gaze, and a bitter smile tugged at Xiao Yu's lips. I thought he had come to beg me to spare Anping, beg me to let go of the past. But I never expected Xiao Yu to gently wrap his arms around me from behind, the way he always did when he was vulnerable. He said, "I plan to send the third brother to Luo Jun. Anping will go with him." He buried his head in my shoulder and said, "Rongyue, don't change. Can we be as good as we once were?" I did not answer him. Right on cue, the voice of a eunuch came from outside the screen, announcing, "Your Majesty." Princess Anping has thrown herself into the lake. It was like a stone dropped into water, a dull splash followed by silence. The room fell utterly quiet. Only Xiao Yu's arms around me tightened instinctively, his grip growing fiercer by the moment. Finally, in the small hours of the night, a maid came to report again, this time, that Princess Anping was unconscious. Her life hanging in the balance. Xiao Yu could sit no longer. He looked at me, his eyes full of guilt. Anping is my benefactor after all. I cannot abandon her, he said. I only go to see her, wait for me to come back. He would never come back, of course, and I would never wait. As soon as he left, I rose from the bed and walked to the window. A secret note lay on the sill. The messenger was long gone. I held the note to the candlelight and unfolded it. It bore an address. The world is full of hidden talents. After all, after reading it, I burned the paper in the candle flame, in the dead of night. Someone retrieved the order I'd placed in the second compartment of my dressing case. They would go to meet someone for me. Xiao Yu did not return all night. I could guess what had happened at Princess Anping's mansion. The poor thing fished from the lake had only woken slowly after Xiao Yu's arrival. She threw herself into his arms, weeping bitterly, saying only that she refused to leave the capital, refused to leave the emperor's side. Anping. The virtuous prince has sworn that if you leave the capital with him, he will not harm you. But Princess Anping would not listen, her tears flowing. She asked, "Is it the empress who cannot abide me? I only wish to stay in my home. Brother, I once went to the grasslands alone for you." Somehow, those words touched Xiao Yu. In the end, Anping still set off with Xiao Chen, but barely past the capital's outskirts. The carriage carrying Anping lost control. Plunging with her inside into a deep cliff, the woman known as Princess Anping was erased from the world entirely. The virtuous prince, who had gone with her, refused to believe it, insisting on inspecting the carriage's wreckage. He too was pulled down the cliff. Fortunately, his injuries were not severe, but when he woke, he had lost his sanity, claiming to have seen the one he loved as he lay dying. From that day on, the virtuous prince abandoned all his official duties, wandering the palace like a lost soul, doing everything he could to harm himself, only because he said this was the only way to see his late princess. When the news reached the capital, Xiao Yu was sitting vigil by my side. At the words, he only lowered his head and gently blew on the spoon in his hand. His gaze focused as he fed me the medicinal soup. I knocked the medicine bowl from his hand. He did not anger, only calmly refilled it. When the entire bowl of medicine was finished, he set the bowl down, avoiding my gaze as he spoke, as if to me, yet as if deceiving himself. "I have only ever wished to repay Anping for her kindness. Rongyue, you are forever different from others. You are my only wife. You can understand me, can't you?" He had already made his decision. I ignored him. But looking at his lips, faintly tinged with a dark purple hue, I laughed out loud. 9. I saw Anping again half a month later. By then, she had taken on a new identity, a lonely orphan serving by the Empress Dowager's side. This former empress, who had never been favored by the late emperor, had devoted herself to Buddhism and the pursuit of the Tao after her young daughter's death, turning her back on all worldly affairs. Now, the entire court knew I lay ill in bed, wasting away, and the harem still needed someone to manage it. It was under this pretense that she had returned. And she had brought back the man Xiao Yu had sent to her side as well. Xiao Yu was furious. He hated his mother, yet to settle Anping, he had no choice but to cooperate with her. On the day the Empress Dowager returned to the palace, Xiao Yu, her son, did not go to greet her, but the Empress Dowager did not seem to mind. The years spent guarding the imperial mausoleum had seemingly tempered her heart with kindness. She ordered her personal nanny to send a plate of sweet cakes to the imperial study. They were said to be made by her own hands, kept warm on a charcoal brazier along the way for fear they would turn cold. That day, Xiao Yu sat alone in the imperial study for an entire afternoon. In the end, he did not send the plate of sweet cakes back. He did not have a sweet tooth, but he craved this fleeting taste of his birth mother's affection. The same mother who had once ignored him, making sweet cakes for him with her own hands. A single plate of pastries was enough to bring tears to his eyes. That night, he sat in my palace for a long time. He seemed to have 1,000 things to say to me, from the grievances of his childhood to this plate of pastries now, but I already knew every detail of his youth. This plate of pastries before me was not something I deigned to notice. Yet in the end, he sat there all night, silent. When the first ray of morning light slipped through the window, he said, "Romeo, perhaps I should let go." He wanted to let go of his past hatreds. To make peace with the boy he had once been, over a single plate of pastries, he chose to forgive easily the same life Chuyu and I had fought to save when his birth mother had abandoned him. I was a little stunned. For the first time in days, I looked at him squarely, my gaze sweeping over his increasingly pale and haggard face before I spoke my judgment. Pathetic. But Xiaoyu did not see it that way. He looked at me, his voice firm. "Romeo, I am the emperor." It was the first time he had emphasized his status before me after receiving a plate of pastries from his birth mother. After thinking he could grasp the love he had lacked as a child, just like that, Xiaoyu turned his back on the man he had once been, without the slightest hesitation. In the end, he stood up and looked down at me. "Romeo, if you remain so stubborn, if you refuse to understand me, there will be others who will." 10. Naturally. The one who understood him was at the Empress Dowager's side. The maternal love Xiaoyu had craved for more than 20 years had come late, but it had come at last. Yet that love was not as genuine as it seemed. At the very least, the Empress Dowager did not notice Xiaoyu's increasingly unsteady steps, his growing gauntness, but Xiaoyu was easily satisfied. A plate of pastries, a few words of concern, and he sent a steady stream of treasures to the Empress Dowager's palace. As if determined to make up for all the years of neglect in an instant, by comparison, my palace was quiet, free, too. That day, I had just used feeding the fish as an excuse to slip a secret note into the mouth of a koi in the Linglong pond. Turning around, I collided with Princess Anping standing behind me. She wore a veiled hat, her loose hair hiding the half of her ear that was missing. "You're so pitiful," she said, looking at me with a taunting smile. "No matter how much you refuse to let me stay in the capital, I not only remain, I live in the palace now. The emperor even allows me to serve by his side. We are together, all day long." Seeing I did not react, she stepped closer, her words dripping with unhidden malice. She said, "You and your friend are both useless cowards." At her words, I tossed the last of the fish food into the pond and fixed my gaze on her. Anping's smile faded. I took only one step toward her. Yet she trembled all over in fear, but she did not retreat. Her eyes flicked to the shadows, where someone had already slipped away to rush to the imperial study with word, as if afraid I would not punish her severely enough. Anping's mouth kept running, provoking me endlessly. "What a useless friend you had," she sneered. A few sharp words to her face, and she flew into a rage and raised her hand. Ridiculous, how she loved those two brothers with all her heart, yet in the end, no one believed her, and also, her words were cut short by a crisp slap. I did not move, only glancing at the maids at my sides. At once, they stepped forward and pinned her down. Every servant by my side was handpicked. When they struck, they swung their arms with all their might, even though Anping had come to provoke me on purpose. She was stunned by the blow. "Jiyu Rongyue, you bitch." Her cheek swelled up high, her gaze venomous as she stared at me. Crack, another slap, and one of her teeth went flying. Hasty footsteps sounded outside the courtyard. Anping looked at me, triumph flashing in her eyes, and in the next moment, her voice turned mournful. "Your Majesty, save me." But the one who came was not the emperor, it was the head nanny by the Empress Dowager's side. "The emperor fainted in the imperial study today. Her Majesty bids the young lady hurry back to prepare to visit him." Only then did she seem to notice me for the first time, falling instantly silent. I looked at Anping with amusement. Genuine terror was etched across her face now, yet I did not torment her further, only fixing my gaze on the eagle whistle hanging at her chest. "What a unique trinket," I said. "I heard that before Princess Anping married the Khan of the Grasslands, she received just such an eagle whistle as a betrothal gift. There are rumors in the streets that she had already pledged her heart to the Khan before the political marriage. If true, it would be quite a romantic tale." The maids holding Anping let go, and she collapsed to the ground, trembling all over. Her eyes were wide as she stared at me. as if she had seen a ghost. She even forgot to bow, scrambling to her feet and running away in a daze. That night, a secret note was delivered to my hands. The messenger's voice was urgent, only saying he feared he had been exposed, and asking how close the surprise attack army was. I thought for a moment, and waved to send a reply. At the city gates, the next day, Xiao Yu, who had woken from his illness, came to my palace. He had come to defend Anping, and now he stared at me, his face filled with disapproval. She is not like you, she has no one to rely on in this palace. Why must you make things difficult for her, Xiao Yu? Stop deceiving yourself, I said. There are no such things as perfect compromises in this world. Xiao Yu fell silent for a long time before speaking to me. But I am the emperor. This was the second time he had emphasized his status before me, this time to announce that to make amends to Anping, he had decided to take her as a concubine. Once, he had hated his father the most for using this very excuse to openly dote on the noble consort and her son. Now, it had finally become his own excuse for breaking his promises and betraying his heart. In a daze, his features overlapped with those of the late emperor, who had once shouted at him and called him worthless at a palace banquet. Power always clouded the eyes. In the end, I looked at his pale face, then thought of the man who had already slipped into the capital in secret. A slow smile tugged at my lips. Xiao Yu was the emperor now, but not for much longer. I never let others provoke me 3 times for the same reason. 11, as if to deliberately warn me. Xiao Yu even prepared a formal conferment ceremony for Anping. It was the most glorious moment of her life. Dressed in magnificent silks, her hair adorned with jewels, she walked toward the man she adored. She stretched out her hand to him, but just as their palms were about to touch, her expression changed abruptly. Anping suddenly pulled a dagger from her sleeve, driving it straight for Xiao Yu's heart. Once, Xiao Yu could have dodged this strike with ease, but now, even his reactions were a beat slower than others. In his panic, the dagger pierced his arm deeply. Before she could strike again, Anping was pinned down by the imperial guards who had rushed over, but she did not fear them at all. Blowing the eagle whistle in her hand, for a long time, there was no response. Waiting for your grassland warriors, I smiled, picking up a longbow and standing not far from her, speaking softly. You knew everything. Her face paled in an instant. Of course I did, I said, smiling, because it was me who has been in contact with you all along. I drew the longbow to its full extent, the arrow aimed at Anping's ashen face. Impudent to think a few spies you brought could join forces from within and seize the city, I said. The first month you planted them here, I uprooted every single one of them, and the city defense map you stole with so much effort is also in my hands. Your grassland iron cavalry never received your signal. And no one will come to save you today. Why? Anping screamed. I flicked my finger, and a feathered arrow pierced her lower abdomen in an instant. It was the same place where Chu had first been wounded. Because I am a vengeful person, I said, and a cruel one. I love watching people fall from the heights of glory into the depths of hell. I closed one eye, aiming at her calf. Once, Anping had pushed Chu into the lake, freezing her legs half to death. Another shrill scream rang out. I drew the bow again, aiming at her once more. My spirits were unusually high today. I could not help but grin, making a whistling sound with my mouth, imitating the twang of a bow and the thud of an arrow. Whoosh thud. Anping trembled in fear, covered in blood, crawling on the ground and roaring at me. Kill me, just kill me, I will kill you, I said. You can wait for it. But before that, I would first collect all the debts that were owed. In the end, Anping, pierced by 42 arrows, was dragged away and thrown into the imperial prison. She wailed for hours before taking her last breath. Only then did people realize that their mighty emperor had not spoken a single word from start to finish, and when they looked again, Xiao Yu had collapsed to the ground, completely unresponsive. Everyone knew the current emperor had fallen gravely ill from rage and grief, betrayed and stabbed by the concubine he loved. At first, he could still make a few sounds. He tried to beg me to save him. And I only sat by and sipped tea, smiling. During this time, the Empress Dowager came once. After confirming that Xiao Yu was a useless invalid, she did not bother to hide her disgust, covering her nose and mouth and leaving at once. Xiao Yu, who had been straining to open his mouth to call her, froze mid-movement. He had craned his neck to watch her hurried retreat, his eyes fixed on her back. After that day, he could no longer speak, but a country cannot be without an emperor for a single day. So when I brought back the 9th prince, who had been living in hiding among the common people, Xiao Yu's eyes flew open, his expression twisted with rage. A parent who loves their child plans for their future, I said, reaching out to smooth the messy hair on Xiao Yu's face. The late emperor spared no effort to protect the 9th prince back then, and it took me a great deal of trouble to make contact with his protectors. Of course, there are also parents who do not love their children. To curry favor with the new emperor, the Empress Dowager thinks you are still too much of an eyesore in this palace, so she has proposed moving you out. This time, Xiao Yu stopped struggling, his convulsions ceased, and the light in his eyes faded into a stagnant pool. He stared at me calmly, and after a long time, closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek, yet I smiled and comforted him. I only take back what is mine, I am not greedy for more. For example, Chu Yu and I had once saved his life, now it was only fair that he return his healthy body. For example, the rivers and mountains I had fought to win for him, he should return them intact. 2. He had failed to keep his oath, hurt Chu Yu who had loved him with all her heart, and pushed away Xiao Chen who had admired him deeply. Now, he was alone in the world, he deserved it. Return to where you came from. Xiao Yu was sent back to his former crown prince's mansion, which was already desolate. A pile of ruins. The new emperor issued an order to confine him there for life, forbidden to leave without an imperial edict. I personally oversaw his delivery, and before I left, I told him the final truth. Amping never pleaded for you back then. She had fallen in love with the grassland prince, and they had long since pledged their hearts to each other. You had nothing to do with it. Xiao Yu listened silently, no reaction on his face, but as I lifted my foot to leave, his gaze followed me. Sorrow and regret etched across his features. Do not bother to meet again, Xiao Yu, I said, turning and walking out the door. I'm sorry. As the door closed, I thought I heard him sob, his voice choked with tears. When I turned around, I bumped into the person I had expected to see. It was Xiao Chen, his frame gaunt and haggard. He was now obsessed with seeking immortality and the Tao, having attempted suicide several times only to be saved each time. He had come to find me on purpose. When we met again, Xiao Chen stood before me, his eyes fixed on mine. I know what a strategy is now, he said. Jiyu Rongyue, you approached us only to complete a mission. That is true for me. I shrugged, non-committal. But Chuyu, I thought back to that day, when Chuyu had looked at me, her eyes shining like starlight. She had said, yeah, Xiao Chen loves me with all his heart. I want to stay here for him. After hearing my words, Xiao Chen's entire being seemed to light up again. A glimmer of hope rising to his face. I know, he said, looking at me, his voice tentative. If the person themselves is willing, they can exchange with the system for a chance to come back, and I nodded. Meeting his hopeful gaze, of course, but I changed my tone, a smile spreading across my face. She only once wanted to stay for you. Have you ever thought about how long ago that once was? The moment she decided to jump off that building, she was destined never to come back. Do you know why? Because you do not deserve her. I spoke the last 3 words slowly, each one sharp and clear. Then, ignoring the devastated, stunned Xiao Chen, I left in a bright mood. It was not long before I heard that the virtuous prince had drowned himself in the river. He still refused to give up, determined to find his princess in the other world. This time, however, luck was not on his side. No one saved him. When he was found, his body was already rotting. May all young girls who love romance remember this. A rotten man is never worth having. When all was said and done, I lit a charcoal basin in a secret chamber. In this body of mine, I would die quickly. As I closed my eyes, the scene of when we first came to this world flashed before my eyes. Back then, the 4 of us were always together, admiring flowers on sunny days, playing flutes under the moonlight. Whether the smiles on their faces were real or feigned, they were always brimming with joy. At the very last moment, I shot my eyes open again, and with my final ounce of strength, issued an order to the hidden guards outside the chamber: if you get the chance, make sure to beat the Empress Dowager Black and Blue. Damn it, old hag, daring to mess with me. I left this world with my eyes rolled skyward. 12. It was as if I had merely woken from a long dream. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on a soft, large bed. I barely had time to stretch when Chuyu, drawn by the movement, practically pressed her entire face to my forehead. Yeah, baby, you're awake. She grinned at me foolishly, yet her eyes darted about guiltily. I silently sat up from the bed and began flexing my hands and feet. Seeing this, Chuyu stepped back in a hurry, her smile strained. Let's talk this over nicely. Nicely, we can work something out. I swear there's still room for negotiation. I paid her no mind, lunging forward to tackle her to the carpet and pin her down. Tell me, I pressed my weight on her, ready to poke my fingers straight into her skull. Are you ever going to be a love fool again? Woohoo, I'm sorry. I'll never grovel for a man ever again. Chuyu buried her face in her hands and sniveled loudly. After a moment, she peeked out from between her fingers and inched closer. Yeah, did you really go after them? I thought for a moment and nodded. More or less. Oh, Chuyu's voice was muffled, her thoughts a mystery. It didn't matter. If she dared utter a single word of sympathy for those men, my palm would fly to her face in an instant. Yet she had no time for such sympathies. Chuyu had made a far more thrilling discovery. The system transferred the money. We've got an extra 30 million in our joint account. Chuyu was over the moon, but my face fell. Only 30 million. We slaved our guts out for all that time and only got 30 million. I think 30 million is actually enough. Baby, where are you going? To settle accounts with the system. Ding, another 30 million just popped up. Chuyu cheered. That's more like it, I thought to myself, watching Chuyu's beaming, excited face. The tangible sense of being alive finally settled over me completely. I gazed at the sunlight streaming in through the window, knowing that every day from now on would be bright and brilliant.